recording us. All right. I know you don't have that much time to give me. You already gave me a bunch of time today. And as usual, I appreciate you. I appreciate all your knowledge and everything that you have to give to me and the community. So, us starting out, tell me a little bit about yourself and, just explain what you have going on.
Ah, said everything to do not disturb, but it didn't take. Okay, so I'm attorney Leticia Crespo. I'm with the Crespo Law Firm. I'm born and raised in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I went to Blessed Sacrament Elementary School all the way till eighth grade, actually. St. Joe's High School in Trumbull, Sacred Heart University and Quinnipiac Law School. Opened up my office, my law firm here in Bridgeport, across the street from City Hall. And once I graduated in 2001, and have been here since. We just celebrated I just celebrated my 22nd anniversary of our office. And we primarily just focus really just on real estate transactions. That's our baby. That's our focus.
Okay.
Um, Pretty much who I am, what I do. I'm a mom, have two children. One is a special needs son who's autistic. So that is something very, very special to me.
Right.
Um, but that's what we do. And we're just in the business of helping people realize their dream. With our Spanish speaking team, I also happen to speak Spanish. So that's kind of what we do and what we're about.
Yes, yes, very much. Like you said, you're a very valuable asset to us in the community. And congratulations on your 22nd year in
Oh,
business.
thank you.
That's awesome. And
Appreciate it.
yeah, through our conversations before, you mentioned your journey with your special needs child. And just
Mhm.
being a mother is second to none. And I think the world of all moms, but you your situation is just a super mom, and I can't express how much I feel for every time you express your situation, but not to go any deeper into that.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about what inspired you to start your journey and being an attorney and real estate, and what really brought you here.
So that's pretty simple. I'm Latina, Puerto Rican background. Just kind of been growing up in Bridgeport, we're kind of what I always call a unicorn. You don't really see many of us who are Latino or people of color. It's just we're rare, right? And so just kind of one of the things I just kind of enjoyed watching a lot of legal things on television, and I wasn't sure when I was very young. I knew I wanted to either be a doctor or a lawyer, and I really drilled it down to wanting to be an attorney. But what kind of attorney at the time was I really wanted to be an FBI agent. Is really what I wanted to do in law enforcement. But kind of going through law school, at the time you had to work. Um, at least almost I think it was a year or 2 years before you can even apply for something like that. So after law school work, get the field work in your practice in a practice of some sort, and then you can go apply. And I just kind of was like ready to hit the ground running. So when I was in college, I interned, and so my major was criminal justice. And just knowing that there was a need, there was a deficit, right? So we talk about food deserts or just all kinds of disparities. And, this was one of those disparities for me that was really important. And I had a couple of people who were my mentors, very few of us, right? So it's a small circle. And I knew a couple of different people, just through family relationships and stuff like that. And so I knew I wanted to be here. So I just was like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna focus. I'll stay close to home. So I went to Sacred Heart, just stayed in Bridgeport. And I knew that all I needed was that degree, that the need was there. And all I needed was the degree to pass the bar exam, and then I could open up. And so that's what I did. So I took study for the bar exam over the summer. From the time you graduate, it's like 2.5 months of prep work.
Right.
Passed on the first try, and once I got my results, after you take it in July, got my results in November, and I opened up. I went right into Lion Terrace. Um, that's where I went, and that's where I've been.
Wow. That's You know something, every time I hear from you, it's another type of success story, and that's awesome. You don't really hear people brag about, not bragging, but speak about how they're born and bred in one place and they stay there their whole life with the intention that they had from a child, and
Right,
really living it out and doing it the way that you envisioned it as a child, and like now you're serving your own community. That's
right.
awesome. That's a success story, that
They
that should be taught to the world, and that has a lot of values in it. But to stay more real estate, what tell me tell me about your basic real estate duties, as far as what do you have to do when it comes down to a real estate transaction for, is there different duties for the buyer side versus the seller side? What Tell me a little bit about that.
So just so that, assuming the audience doesn't know that, we're talking about people who are looking to buy or sell a piece of real estate, a home. And once you're in that process, when you are at the attorney point, we kind of have two different fee structures and tasks and responsibilities. So what we do is we always let our clients know upfront what the kind of the general scope of what we're going to do is. So for buyers, they're definitely, like I said, there's off the bat, they're different because when you buy, it's one thing, when you sell, it's another. It's just different tasks. So I would say that in certain respects, a sale is a lot lighter in terms of some of the things that we have to do in terms of like we're not ordering the title search, we receive it. So we have certain tasks. So I'll tell you just briefly what they are from top to bottom. For a buy, we're getting the contract, reviewing that contract, monitoring all the dates in the contract to make sure we protect our client and their deposit. And guiding them through each phase until we get to a point where we basically get them through their inspection. We're just monitoring. We're not the active part, the front and center part of it, but we are watching, making sure like that's been satisfied. If there's any negotiations, we find out. We get addendums put into place. Then we get to the appraisal, make sure that goes okay. If that goes okay, then we kind of moving on to our stage, which is ordering title to make sure that there's no liens on that property, everything's sold free and clear so that we can insure it because we do have to issue title insurance for that property so that your asset, your major family asset that you're buying is insured. Then we work as a team, right? We work with you as a realtor, loan officers, and insurance agents. We have to work as a team collectively because we don't get there alone in life or in a closing, right?
Right.
Um,
At
so
all.
we wait for a clear to close to come in, which is basically means that your loan is satisfied, completely ready to go, and then we coordinate the closing with the other side. So that would be the seller so that we can make sure that we coordinate and all on the same page. We know how much money is due to each side. The bank sends us funds, client sends us funds, and then we disperse those funds to the client. If they have any issues at the walkthrough, we negotiate those things because some things can come up at the last minute. We work through it.
Right.
Now, on the sales side, it's a little different, right? We're just kind of, and that one is just everything on the first side, but we're just watching to make sure the buyer gets through each of those, right? Did they get through their inspection? Did they get through their appraisal? Is there an addendum we need to know about to lower the price and make some adjustments to anything on their end? And then once we receive someone's title search, then we're reviewing that to see if there's anything, is it clear? Are there liens? And then we are responsible for clearing that out for the client with them. So clients will give us like a payoff statement. Sometimes they're like, oh, I didn't know I have a lien on the house. So we'll kind of just say either give us an authorization and we'll kind of work with you. If it's something that we may need, it's an enhanced process. There's a way to kind of find old things. If there's something that was from prior to when they bought, then we use their title insurance premium and start to work on indemnifications so that it doesn't stop them from closing. That's why it's so important, because if you bought and then that other lawyer from the prior deal didn't clear up title, we use your title insurance policy to be able to insure the new deal and still move forward while everybody's still clearing out the stuff in the back end. So and then obviously we sign with our client, and then disperse and get them their funds from their proceeds, wherever, we usually wire it to them. But that's what we do on that end.
Your
So
job is extensive, very extensive. So, like, from my experience, what I see from all attorneys is you're like our parents. You know, you're kind of guiding us through the whole process. So, us as the agents, yeah, we're doing a lot of work and due diligence, looking up these properties and whatnot. But once it comes to the paperwork side and like handling, everything when it comes to that, there's so much that's going on.
there is.
We need help, so and that's what it exactly what you just explained. You're doing you're finding a title, you're doing the title insurance, and you're doing so much behind the scenes. And it's good to hear you say that because a real estate transaction consists of so many people, not only the agent and the buyer or seller. It's the attorneys, the lenders, and
Yeah.
everybody, like you said, has to be in a team. So going more into that, we were just talking about selling a home. Is there a different approach for handling residential construction and commercial? Do you deal with those?
We do. So I residential is obviously mainly the just the scope of what I explained. Commercial, we do it. It just I tend to want to stay away from things that are environmental.
Mm,
Um, require, phase one, phase two, phase three. Those are called establishments. So you're talking about things that are like where chemicals are handled, laundry mats, gas stations, things like that. That's where it gets a little bit messy. And I just personally choose to stay away from it only because history has shown that most of the clients don't want to follow the things that have to be followed. When
mm,
you tell them that this is an establishment and you have to follow certain protocols because of the classification, they kind of don't want to do it.
yeah,
And then if they don't want to follow those rules, then I don't want to do the closing. So
I
I stick
totally understand that.
I stick to the things that are not right. So yeah, absolutely. And it's very similar, right? It's just certain of the documents are a little bit different. The prep work is a little different. I find it's a little bit more intensive, so it is more expensive. I would say it's about double, definitely. In terms of attorney fees, is double, because the work is different. Yeah, it's definitely different.
Okay.
Um, that's how we would treat that. And then what was your last one? It was a residential, commercial, and oh, new construction.
Yeah.
So in new construction, I personally, my clientele are not really people who are building homes from scratch. That's just that kind of not my clientele, but as my clients buy more so than they are the builder.
Okay.
So as the builder, as the buyer's representation, I'm looking for certain things that are a little bit different. It's a different kind of a contract, making sure that there's proper specifications for what's being built, what you're getting, because they literally have to have more details. Like if you're getting specific type of flooring, if you're having specific type of lighting, how much of the lighting, what kind of lighting, or their budgets for those things. Making sure that we kind of just cover our bases. And then it's a little different because you don't do certain things until the very end.
Yeah.
And so new construction, obviously in this market, it's been a little bit challenging, only because it's not, even though it's a hot market, things are so expensive,
Yeah.
so I'm not seeing them move for my clientele. Mind you, I have a very specific, my clientele is not
Definitely.
regular clientele, right? Like my clientele happens to be Black and brown. So my clients kind of are in a different, let's say just a different space for whatever reason. And so what they've been looking at, it's been very limited because they're not really looking to certain areas that are like way over like 700. That's just not their price point.
Yeah.
For me, that's just not their price point. And if they are, they're looking for built, most of them are, it's just built homes. And like I said, I haven't seen like a lot of traction on those because costs have been so high. I had some of them that we did have, they fell through. They were just not granting contingencies because the price of materials went up and they had it locked in.
Yeah.
So that's been a little weird of a market, but it is a contract that we treat differently.
Right.
So that long story short is that if you move forward into the appraisal part, they're waiting until basically the building has a CO almost. They were not going back to do an appraisal until almost the very end. So you're kind of just sitting through that whole construction until a CO comes out. They'll do some things on the loan, obviously, but it's like waiting on that appraisal to the very last minute. And if it doesn't, and they overextended themselves, or it's just not that value, They've been kind of, the ones I've done late, in the past year, 2 years, they've been hitting it on the nose. But a couple of them, the builders just lost their mind because they try to build in the cost, and the value is just not the
Not
comps are not
working.
catching up.
It's not working at all. And
Right.
the few friends that I've had that have been um lucky enough to have the option to build in this climate, they pulling their hero. It's a tough task, but at the same time, if you have the wherewithal to do it and the knowledge and the resources to do it, it could be a profitable and a lucrative journey. But at the same time, it's not something that you get into being new, or it's tough. It's tough.
Right. Well, I mean, as we say, this is the word is built into the system. It's a market,
Yeah.
right? We are in the real estate market. Markets go up, markets go down, prices change, things get better, things get worse. We ride the cycles.
Right.
Um, Sometimes you're riding high, sometimes, materials are just out of reach.
Right.
But I think things are softening a little bit, rates are softening a touch, everything's kind of, stabilizing enough in a sense with some decent forecasting coming up for next year. So, hopefully we'll see a little bit more of that, and people who are sitting on their land, because there is undeveloped land here in Bridgeport that people have. Builders are sitting on it, just kind
Yeah.
of deciding whether to pull the trigger or not.
Right. So on a separate note, are real estate attorneys required for all real estate transactions? And
And
I know that's different. That's a different answer for different places as far as states, correct?
yeah. Well, in Connecticut, a buyer definitely, in order to have it be insured in title, we are have to have an attorney to do that. There are some sellers who want to be unrepresented, who try to try to wing it on their own, but that's that. I mean, obviously, I'm not. If I'm the buyer's attorney, I can't I'm not doing their job. So, I've had people try to, say, hey, you do all this information. I'm not representing them. I don't want the line to be blurred. I'm very clear about what I do and what I don't. But some people try, I mean, technically, as far as a sales concerned, there's no requirement to necessarily to do that, but you have to know what you're doing.
Right.
And so there's tasks. Who's going to provide undertaking? Technically there's not a requirement on the sales side, but on the purchase side, if you're getting title insurance, you cannot, only an attorney, basically the title company can issue title insurance. We're agents for, like, I'm an agent for First American. So I have to, in order to write title, I have to do that. So, but this is what the legal components entail, is that, monitoring that contract. I mean, you can try to give it a go alone. Have I seen people try to do it and they do like hey, here's deed, and go online and do that. But when you're handling lender funds, we're talking about closing protection letters and things like that. Like, you have to have insurance. I have to have my errors and omissions, malpractice insurance, to cover mistakes. Things happen. Cyber insurance, have to have that. I have that. Um, so we have to have a lot of things in place, like systems and insurances, and be subscribed to certain things in order to make this work. Because people will just kind of try to suggest it and they say, here, you do that. No.
Right. So for sale by owners, you gotta be cautious, we need
You
as
have to
much
have
help as you could get, even if you're trying to cut corners, and attorneys are super, super valuable in this transaction.
I mean, just realistically, I mean, you're talking about, like, between all the, sales closing costs for a seller, in terms of like attorney fees and the conveyance taxes, like that's like 1% to 1.25% in Bridgeport. Your attorney fees with costs, with release tracking, at least you're talking about at least like $1,900 with everything, recording fees, release tracking, things like that. I mean, that's what our fees are. I don't know. I can't speak to other people. I know people are a lot more expensive, and then
Right.
I know there's people who are do it for, really inexpensively, and you will get that level of service for that. That's fine. That's okay. I'm not for everybody.
Right. Right. Right.
Okay with that.
So some people like my team, the VK team, we deal with, certain vendors, heart to heart, and you are one of our closest vendors. So at what point should somebody that doesn't have a attorney contact an attorney during their transaction, or should they already be in contact with an attorney when they're just searching?
So there's my perfect world and then there's the reality, right?
Right.
In my perfect world, I would like my clients to have done some due diligence, and just like they shop for their agent, and shop for an attorney, right? Because if you're not, we're like you said, you said it's kind of like a parent. I feel it's kind of like a puppet master, and we're kind of holding everything, right? Because sometimes it's someone's turn to step up, sometimes we fall back, sometimes we kick in. So it's
Yeah.
kind of everybody kind of like just doing this dance. And I feel that clients, so if you don't have experience in purchasing a home, and then there's people who just kind of let people get in their ear, which gets really challenging, right? Because sometimes you go to family and everybody in the family knows everything, and that could become a problem as well. So I feel like that's great. Have a sounding board within your family, but obviously have someone who this is their profession, ask certain questions, and that's what you're paying for.
Right.
So I don't mind a consultation, a general one. What I would say is, if you can have one in the beginning and just say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. So that when the agent says, I'm ready for, you need an attorney now, like we're ready to sign a contract, we have to have an attorney listed on here. You're not going to go, you want to do shopping in a rush? Like, feel the person out, get their personality. Like me, I say, ask me the questions. You're going to interview me. I know what I'm talking about because this is what we do. My team knows what we're doing all day. um can you reach me in the morning? Like, let's say 9 to 1. Some attorneys are in court all day.
Hmm.
You're not going to talk to them. You're going to get staff. If you're okay with that, great. If you need an attorney, that's not what we're doing here. Like, we're not court people. I don't have no interest in that anymore. I'm done with that. That was way in the beginning. But this is all, so we're available all, doing signings with loans and everything starting from 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. Then we start pushing money out and finishing closings towards, funding things in the late in the afternoon. So you're going to feel that out, like asking them, like, questions. And if you feel their attitude, like they're feeling bothered, I've been doing this for 22 years and I still don't feel like I'm bothered by anyone asking a question. And if anything, I understand that everybody has to start somewhere, and you don't know. And I'm not going to take for granted that I have a history doing this, that you should know better. Like,
Right.
that's not fair. It's not reasonable to expect that from folks. So if you think that feeling out those soft skills and that dynamic is important. And or you just, sometimes you don't even see the attorney, literally ever. You won't talk to them, you won't see them. And so if that's what you're okay with, then great. But if you're feeling like you want to say, no, this time I want an attorney question, or if it's like a real legal one and you feel like I really want to just talk to an attorney, do you have access? That's important. If you
Yeah.
don't have access, then, then don't wonder why when you did an interview and at the last minute you just were like, oh, let me go with the cheap guy. Okay, well, the cheap guy's been in court all day probably.
Yeah.
Um,
That's so true.
he has to staff, and you'll see him. Not even sometimes you can just end up signing with a paralegal because it's a notary if they're notaries in the office. So those things matter in the experience, the client experience. So I feel like if you can get them early on, so that you're not doing it at the last minute and feel rushed into a decision, because then I have people who will call, like, and like expect an answer in that instant, and I'll call back, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. It's not unfair. It's a
Right.
reasonable time. They're like, oh, I already picked someone else. Okay, well, because you left it to the last minute, and that's okay. And sometimes it works, and sometimes they call back and say, hey, could you take this over?
Hmm.
Because I can't find him or her. No, you get what
Yeah.
you. So
There's
I
a
think if you go earlier on, I think it creates a better experience. And on another level, if the clients can participate in so many of the free home buyer education classes, you can tell people who have not taken any classes, you
right.
don't need to subscribe with them, use them, just take the class, because usually we vet who comes in, and then you're kind of like, imagine you're just going and saying, hey, go play in the NFL in the last, in the playoffs, and you've never touched anything. Well, of course you're not going to know. But if you can at least go through a training camp and have experience in the sport or
Right.
in this field, right? It lends yourself to not feel so lost
Right.
before you feel like people are just in your ear telling you what to do. Get a feel for it from some in the, from a class. We try to host them all the time, or not host. We participate in other people who are doing them, as we all, everybody in the team takes a part of what they do in the deal, in the transaction, and each person speaks on that. So there's free classes, there's agents who host them, and then we just speak at them. But if you can do that,
Picture.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually how I met you. And that's so
Mhm.
important to get the feel of the people that you're working with. And I usually when I start working with somebody new in my database, I give them, multiple people, like you said, to just to fill out, because the person that I deal with most of the time might not be the right fit for my client or whoever I'm dealing with, So that's a very important process to do, I believe, as well, before you get too far along in the process, you know.
Yeah.
And you
And I
also
would say, let me just add that, especially in the contract phase, once you sign a realtor contract, depending on which one it is, which you won't be sure about sometimes because you're not familiar with it, there are certain dates that are so critical, one of them being the attorney review period. If you hire an attorney when that has expired, there's nothing I could do to cancel. So don't send contracts when that's expired. That's why it's so timely, because there's things that protect buyers. So at the very least, please do what you put the pay ink to the paper,
right,
at least on the standard MLS contract that's available. 5 business days is all you get.
five
And that
businesses.
5 business days from the date you sign. So, and that includes the date. So if you sign on a Monday, technically you could include from Monday to Friday. That's all you have.
Yes,
Sign
yeah,
on Sunday, you still have till Friday. But send it the following Monday, that's done. That expired.
we're not covered anymore.
No.
So, if you could think of two, what are two of the most common issues that usually arise in a real estate transaction? And question two, there's two sides to this.
Okay.
Has a deal ever fell through due to the negligence, your negligence, maybe sometime in the beginning,
My negligence.
or maybe like you said, when we're new to it, we don't know what we don't know. And have you ever saved a deal? I'm sure you saved a deal. I know you was close to save the deal with me. So yeah,
Save skills, yes. Negligence, no.
okay.
Um, operate in that space. I
That's
take
good.
these.
Good.
This is my livelihood. I don't take it lightly.
Mhm.
Mistakes in my world could cost my license or a lot of money. So that's not even an option.
Right.
Um, Especially mortgage contingencies. That is not a joke. That's in the contract. I have alarms that go off several times in the afternoon, starting at 4 o'clock, and we're pushing them out, and we have backups to that. So, so that, because that protects deposits.
Yes.
Um, but two common issues that we do see are, once the title search comes in, that's the big one. Title search comes in, and we're find title issues. What are those issues? Mainly what I have is there's a lot of probate problems. The other stuff, like if most people get the title insurance, so there's like an unreleased lien, those are issues, but getting those things cleared up, those sometimes take a bit. In terms of the issues I find, honestly, is dealing with colleagues who leave things to the last minute.
Mm,
So if we're doing everything on its, I'm really big on workflows, and when things start and when things should be happening, right? So, like that flow of a file is very serious to me and is curated for reasons. Like I
right.
work on a specific way, mainly like I'm checking, hey, is the appraisal done? Yes, no. Next. Okay, next question. Appraisal. Yes, done, no. Because yes is we order a title search. We
Yeah.
already got the fee agreement. We already got the fee. I'm just waiting for the yes on the appraisal. It's good. We go. So other people who are not working with a good workflow, I feel like I have to keep on them because it starts to cause a delay. Example, title search came in. I get that the moment the appraisal comes in. So we know that that's early, right? That's early on in the deal.
Right.
Get that within 5 days. I send it the day it comes in. You're sitting on it for a week, 2 weeks, let's say 3 weeks, and you haven't signed with your client, you haven't ordered the payoff, you haven't checked title work to see if there's liens you got to undertake or track, and what if you can't get indemnification, and now we're sitting there with a clear to close. It's one of the most frustrating things on the planet, like to sit there with a clear to close
Sitting
and
with
an
a clear quote.
attorney saying, oh, I don't have a payoff. I said, well, what's about the old one? Do you have your expired one? Oh, we don't do this part until we get a clear to close. So you sit this whole time with a file and a title search to get to now we have a clear to close, and now is when you want to start checking stuff out and doing stuff and getting stuff. Because with the old payoff, I can work with it usually with my title company. We can hold an escrow. Sometimes it's like 125%. I show them what they're going to get left over, a last bank statement, and we can work through that. That's the saving part. I can work through it. Usually there's a workaround I can try. I don't like it. I'd rather a clean deal, but it's always having to pick up that piece. Like, all right, you didn't do it. And then you're asking, hey, where's the permit? Did you close the permit? Did you close the permit? That's another one. So I would say it's lack of workflow from colleagues, surprise probate work, and then, permit problems. We check what we're supposed to check, right? We're supposed to check on the, if there's an open permit or if the listing says one thing and then what's there is another. Um, that becomes a problem where we're looking for permit closures, and it's or literally never a permit. People listing a house fully gutted, not a permit in sight. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna find out, and they'll wait till that comes in and then hope I don't catch it. And then they're like, okay, how about I do this? And how about we escrow? And how about I get it done later? Then you kind of get to that point, and then you have client, and they know this, but they put the client up against the wall, right? They got to clear to close. Sometimes they got to move. And so we have to do escrow agreements or, and hold money back to make sure they get these things done. So those are the big ones. And the probate is obvious, right? Like people who are like, there's so many different problems with probate, right? Like I have some that right now, one person signs. Okay, I get a title search.